Welcome back to Boiler Wild. My name is Eric Johnson. On this podcast, talk about boiler industry topics, personal development, and steam pressure, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. WILD is an acronym that stands for Work Hard, Invest in Yourself, Lead Others, and Develop Yourself into a Person of Excellence. Highly believe that we should always strive to be more excellent and better every single day. That's constantly learning, whether that's from textbooks, online, social media, or other people. There's always something to learn, and that doesn't always have to be boiler related. You can learn stuff about marriage. You can learn stuff about raising kids. You can learn stuff about woodworking or a hobby. It's always something to get better. There's more to life than working, but if you are not where you want to be in your career, learning a little bit outside of work can go a long way. So today's topic I want to talk about. So I saw, if you've listened to any other podcast episodes, you'll know that I'm a big LinkedIn fan. And while my LinkedIn is pretty isolated, I stay on the boiler world kind of side, and I stay out of the success bro side of LinkedIn. Of there is this emerging, and I wouldn't say it's emerging. It's been there, but there are organizations that are either just founded or are founded, for a while now, and they advocate for blue collar skilled trades. There are older organizations that are advocates for certain trades in the boiler industry. Probably the most common one is ABMA, American Boiler Manufacturers Association. Although I don't know if they can call themselves that anymore, because they're not made of boiler manufacturers. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. But there are tons of other organizations that are popping up, whether they're new or they're just doing a better job marketing, and I'm coming across them. I look at them, and a lot of the messaging is always, the Department of Labor statistics says we're going to be short 400,000 welders by 2030. And, some random shocking statistic like that. And it doesn't take a genius to know that we're going to be short welders. We're short welders now, but we're going to be more short on skilled trades, welders, electricians, carpenters in 2030. And talking about the problem is one thing, I would say. You have to make people aware of it. Although everybody inside the skilled trades is aware of it, especially company leadership, business owners. It's not a secret that there is a shortage of skilled tradespeople. And the whole goal of these organizations is to attract people into the skilled trades. And I feel like a lot of the organizations, in order to do that, end up lying to people. So I saw a LinkedIn post. This all stems from a LinkedIn post that I saw. And this LinkedIn post is from a guy who I don't have any ill feelings for. I believe what he's doing is a net positive, but a lot of his messaging can stretch the truth and be a straight up lie, I feel like. And when you overgeneralize statistics or overgeneralize data, or you exaggerate data, it can end up being a lie. And you don't want to trap people or attract people into a skill or career that is based on a lie. So there was a LinkedIn post I saw this morning and it said we need 600,000 open jobs for manufacturing. And yet too many people are told to flip burgers for $20 an hour instead of starting an apprenticeship that could put them at $35 to $40 an hour within 18 months. So I don't know about you, but starting at $18 an hour for manufacturing, and then 18 months later, you're at $35, $40 an hour. I would say if you do that, you are the exception rather than the average. One, I would say most manufacturing companies or companies in general, any skilled trade company is not going to have an apprenticeship program that's in-house that is super robust generally. There are companies that do. There definitely are that do, and the larger the company, more likely they have that program. However, I have yet to see a program that takes somebody who's brand new, working at $18 an hour, and then in 18 months puts them at $35, $40 an hour. One, $18 an hour starting in a manufacturing job. And I don't know, manufacturing is pretty general. If you are actually like producing, like if you're a skilled labor in manufacture, that's different than unskilled labor. Like you're just watching a process and pushing buttons. I would say that's like unskilled labor. But so I'm not really sure what manufacturing jobs really means. But I think on the terms of like maintenance jobs or like, like electrician, where you have a specialized trade, and you can go on Reddit or Facebook pages, and that's, people say, people make stuff up, but there's posts all the time. I'm in many groups, and there's posts all the time. Hey, I'm getting this many dollars an hour, and I have this much experience, and I can't get a raise. I can't get this, can't get that. And I have never seen somebody go from $18 an hour, which is, like I said, poverty wages, when it's hard to convince somebody to work in an environment like a manufacturing facility, steel mill, something like that, and say, hey, you're going to earn less starting here than you are at McDonald's, but don't worry, in the future, you'll earn more. So why that doesn't work is, one, people, unless you're coming right out of high school, people generally have a lifestyle that requires more than $18 an hour of earning potential. And in order for them to go backwards, they either have to really cut down on their lifestyle. And I'm not talking about like, I have a boat, I have this, I have that. Like, this is, hey, I'm married with a wife and 2 kids, and now you're going to cut me back. I was making $5 an hour, and now I'm going to go down to $20 or $18 an hour. That it's 2025. You're already scraping by on $25 an hour. Now you're going to reduce that by, $6, $7 an hour to go down to, $18. I've seen starting jobs start at $16 an hour. $16 an hour in 2025 is like $3 an hour 10 years ago. It's the amount of inflation that has happened is unreal, and companies need to adjust the starting rate wages. And I understand it's hard. There's all kinds of reasons why they can't, but unless you have specific examples to start showing people and like, hey, this is what we do, don't be putting out dollars an hour or wages that are unrealistic. Most people in the skilled trades are not making $100,000 a year. Yet they're, every time some skilled trades advocacy group speaks up, they say, hey, like, join skilled trades. You can easily make $100,000 a year within, 3 to 4 years or whatever. And you can do that with overtime. if you were to work 40 hours a week, you'd have to make over $50 an hour to make $100,000 a year. So if you're under $50 an hour, you have to work overtime to get to $100,000 a year, which, that's fair, but hey, you can earn $100,000 a year, but hey, you have to work 60 hours a week. That's different than somebody with a salary of, I have a $90,000, a year salary, but I work a straight 40 hours, a 9 to 5, and I'm home at 5:30 every day, or I work remotely. Like there's a huge difference there. And there's overgeneralization of salary ranges or earning amount. People are magnifying what the top people are getting and not taking what the average is. And I will stand on this till the end of time. If the skilled trades were that attractive, we wouldn't have to beat the drums and constantly say how attractive they are. Google doesn't have to constantly advertise at how amazing of a company they are and how amazing it is to work there. They just get tens of thousands of applications every single year just because they're Google. Same thing with Facebook or, FANG, Apple, Facebook, Google, NVIDIA, and all those companies. Them existing, they just get applications because there is a certain kind of like social, like, oh, I work at Google, I work at Facebook. Like there's kind of this like social cred. Same thing with like, if you work for an NFL team, oh, I work for the Minnesota Vikings or, whatever. And it's under like, I've read that NFL teams don't pay market rate for, people that are not on the field, like normal average people, all the behind the scenes people, because there's this, like the perks of working with an NFL team, like, oh, you get, free shirts or, apparel and, it's cool. And, you get discounted tickets or like whatever. Like they factor that in to the wage instead of having to pay market rate. And some people, like that. Oh, I get, I work with an NFL team. Like it's cool. I work with an NBA team. It's cool. Like whatever. There's no poor decisions. Like everybody has their own decisions when it comes to the job that they want to do. But for the skilled trades, instead of lying to people or emphasizing what the top earners make and then saying, hey, you could make this, on average, most people are not going to make that. Like on average in the NFL, people only make like $2 million, $3 million. That's gross. And then they're only in the NFL like 2 to 3 years. If agents or whoever said, hey, come to the NFL, obviously, you don't have to advertise, but hey, come to the NFL, you can make $300 million in 5 years or whatever the quarterbacks are making. Like that is an exception to the rule and not what the average player is getting. The average player barely makes the roster for 2 to 3 years and then may get traded, may move to the practice squad here and there, but moves around and then is gone. And nobody really knows they exist or have left. And people see the longtime players like Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, all those people, and they think that everybody is like them in the fact that, they're making all this tons of money and they're staying around in the league for so long because that seems normal to them. But the average player, 2 to 3 years and out, and then they make less than $5 million. And that's gross. You have agent fees, taxes, all this stuff that ends up coming out of those contracts. And now you are not left with anything close to what you thought you'd be left with. But in order to recruit for the skilled trades, one, companies need to pay more on all levels. And going back to the, $18 an hour to $35, $40 an hour, like, I don't even know of the union that does that. So that's 18 months. So that's, year and a half. Union apprenticeship typically takes 5 years, and in 1 year, you're never going to get 100% pay bump. And so I don't know where that comes from, but the union apprenticeship takes 5 years. Typically, a Department of Labor apprenticeship takes 4 years, I believe. And I am a firm believer that if the companies, especially companies that are like trying to hire for general jobs, this is beyond like electrician, carpenter. Like if you're trying to hire, like, hey, work in a manufacturing facility for, low wages, $18, $20 an hour. If you're trying to hire for that, you have to sell somebody on the growth aspects of it or have a clear career plan. However, I have driven past way too many manufacturers, or I've heard stories, and I've worked with people who work at a manufacturing facility who don't get raises every year. Or if they do get a raise, it's like 10-cent raise. Like a 10-cent raise, you might as well just give them a sticker and a piece of candy on their way out the door and tell them, hey, thanks for showing up to work. Like 10 cents doesn't even keep up with the cost of living, especially now in 2025. Wages are suppressed, and there's all kinds of reasons for this. This is not a minimum wage discussion and all that stuff. But if you expect skilled people to work for a low wage and then have no quick career plan for them to grow out of that wage, or if it's not viable, and if it's just this like pie in the sky plan, they start the job and then they find out 4 months later that, it's not really what it was advertised to be, the career growth, and, or it's limited to certain people, or there's all these stipulations that they weren't told. You're lying to them to get them into the job, and they're never going to stick around for it. If welders, electricians, boiler makers, HVAC service techs, if the starting pay was more and there was more guaranteed career growth that didn't take 10, 20 years, we would not have a shortage of people. I think the shortage came from, now this is dating before me, but really in the 80s and 90s, the push for college came about, and the shortage of people, maybe your dad worked at a factory on the other end of the town or whatever, and he came home and he worked extra hours and a bunch of overtime so that his kids could go to college and not get a factory job. Like, that was the sentiment, because the salary white collar positions were way better work-life balance, way better wages than the average, factory job. And now that same sentiment is still carried on through the skilled trades. Like, no amount of advertising is going to make the skilled trades attractive. Yes, you can advertise purpose. You can advertise you're making a difference. In HVAC, we're heating spaces, we're cooling spaces, like it's a necessity. You're a part of, keeping the world turning, all this yada, yada, yada. But then the person gets on Instagram and there's somebody else making triple their wage, just posting pictures and brand deals. And I don't care how much of purpose they feel, or, how critical, we need welders, without me, buildings couldn't get built or whatever. I don't care how much that that purpose is sold when the fact that there are people, plenty of people, and it's not just a small percentage, there are plenty of people making the same or more money doing way less work. And, there are salaried positions making 150, 200 grand a year who work a straight 40 hours a week, who work remote. There's a big push for, remote work. So when, hey, join the skilled trades, do this. Oh, but you're going to have to travel and you're going to have to go to these job sites and it will change depending on where we need you to go. And if you're a service technician, you may be home every night, but you'll have a radius to travel in. And then, if you're, if you're a part of new construction or project manager kind of, a company can say, hey, this is where we just picked up a project here. It's 4 states away. We need you to go there. And then you go 4 states away and you're working out of town. And that some people enjoy that, but most people do not enjoy that, especially if they have a family at home. And then you say, hey, you're going to work outside when it's 100 degrees or it's 20 degrees and it's snowing and it's raining. And you factor, there's all these factors that factor into it. And then the amount of purpose and the initial drive of why people get into the skilled trades and whatnot, what they were sold, that number becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And then all the negatives start adding up. And, can you, if you are in the skilled trades or whatever, can you honestly say, oh, I would want my kids to work this same job, or I would want a friend, I would highly recommend a friend to work this same job. There are great jobs, but at the same time, I've seen, when I was a service tech, you constantly see different companies, different maintenance programs and companies and all this stuff that you're working at. And those, shoot, I was working late at a university, and they had all this tons of boiler problems, and essentially they pumped an entire barrel of 30-gallon barrel of return line treatment into their system in a day, and causing havoc, tons of carryover. Boilers couldn't stay online. And this steam system was heating 5 dorms, 6 dorms, and had a kitchen and all this stuff and tons of issues. And I'm there late. It's 7:00 at night, but I'm there with 4 other personnel from the university, maintenance personnel. And I had fixed the issue, got them back running at this point. And one of them was like, hey, you want a job? We're hired. We always need great people like you. And, this is, if you're a service tech worth anything, you'll get offered jobs all the time. You should be worried if nobody's offering you a job. It's not, don't think of yourself as special because somebody offers you a job. In 2025, if you're a service technician and your customers aren't offering you a job or, hey, come work for us, you should be worried that your work ethic or, your skills and abilities. But this person's like, hey, come work here. We always need, great people on our maintenance staff. You're so knowledgeable and all this stuff. And this is probably 2021. And, I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all that. And then, this person goes, yeah, so we start people out at $20 an hour. And, I'm like, oh, all right. That's cool. I'm not interested. And I was, never interested. I'm not, that kind of work is just not for me. I'm like, but $20 an hour, I'd be taking a huge pay cut to come work for a university. you expect somebody that is highly skilled, that works on your boiler system, that you call in and actually solves problems and solves it by themselves. And then you expect me to quit my job, come work for the university, and now get paid and take a huge pay cut to come work for $20 an hour. Yeah, maybe there's more benefits and all that stuff, but $20 an hour is still $20 an hour, and benefits don't pay the bills. But like there's no incentive for me to take that cut. Like, why would I ever do that? But this university, they also start people, like they start maintenance staff at $20 an hour. And it's like, they were saying how they can't find anybody good or anybody worth anything and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, because you're starting at $20 an hour. No serious maintenance professional who has actual experience is going to look at $20 an hour and say, oh, you know what? That job is for me. $20 an hour, like that is a terrible starting wage. And then like the whole pay scale, they're like, oh, like we top out at like $32 an hour if you work 15 years. And that's archaic thinking on the university employers side of things. Yes, they are trying to keep costs low and all this stuff, but if you want a serious maintenance staff and you think somebody's going to work from $20 an hour and 15 years later only be in the low 30s, you're going backwards. And those skills can be used and way other employers are paying double that. So I don't know, this seems like a rant. I'm trying to wrap this all together in a neat package. But in order to attract people to the skilled trades, I think the only way to honestly attract people, yes, we have to talk about it, but the only way to attract people is be brutally honest with them. And I always kind of relate this to like the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps, they're the only recruiting branch that hasn't missed their recruiting goals in the last couple of years. And everybody knows that the Marine Corps obviously doesn't pay the best, and it's gonna suck most of the time. But they sell this mission. Hey, you're gonna be a Marine, and they sell they sell this glorified status and all this stuff, and that works for them. And I would say that works a lot of the time because once you sign up, you're signed up. How many people, if you could join the Marines and just quit in boot camp and just say like, this is too hard for me, I'm going to quit, I'm going to go try to find something else, I would bet you very, very few people would become a Marine. And I take that kind of same thinking into the skilled trades. Yes, we can advertise purpose and all this stuff, but at a certain point in time, we just have to say, yes, you're not going to make the most money, of all your friends and family. Yes, you are going to have to work late. Yes, you're going to have early mornings. Yes, the job is going to be hot. Yes, it's going to be cold. Yes, the conditions are not ideal. Boiler specific. Yes, boiler rooms are hot. Yes, boiler rooms are dangerous. But at the same time, if you generate skills and learn skills, you can have a career that is, you can't offshore maintenance work. Even with AI, everybody says, oh, the skilled trades aren't affected by AI. Now they aren't affected, but, I think the future is somebody using AI to solve problems. And that's a whole nother topic for somewhere else. But I do see a future where you have very unskilled people and companies relying on these unskilled people who just have a connection to an AI or a connection to a central office person, and they just The person in the field is just there to turn the wrenches, turn the valves and whatnot. And the AI or the central, data office where they're remotely in has the knowledge and base. And that can easily undercut a skilled tradesperson, especially if that gets like scale and has tons of money behind it. But if you're going to recruit for skilled trades, I don't think starting off with unrealistic pay scale numbers or unrealistic timeline numbers is the way to go. It can be great for attracting people into it because a lot of people are just attracted for the money. But when they find out that it's a lie or that it's a very few percentage of people that actually make that, or what they have to do to make that, or the timeline that it takes to make that, they easily get discouraged. So what to do about this, I don't know. I think just being brutally honest with people is the only play. If you try to sugarcoat it, like the boiler industry is a hard industry. There's a lot of suck. I remember I've had a lot of sucky days as a service technician. There's also a lot of great days, but I would say humans crave purpose, and there are a lot of humans that don't have purpose in their jobs, in their career, that do make less than what you can make in the boiler industry. But selling them on this, hey, you're going to have all this purpose and you're essential and you're going to make all this money, I don't think that gets somebody through the suck and through the initial stages of learning. You have to set realistic expectations for them and say, hey, this is going to suck most days. Yes, you're going to have this purpose, but when the days suck, when you're working at 8 p.m. and you miss your kid's soccer practice that you wanted to go to, like, I don't care how much purpose you have, most people are going to be upset at that. And now it depends, what you get into can change. Like, if you're a stationary engineer, boiler operator, something, like, you typically only have set shifts, but those shifts are kind of strange. Normally, if you're new, you'll be working nights. So nights aren't, always a great time. Some people love working nights. So it's always, what's best for you. But I would say, number one, do what's best for you. Don't ask the internet for advice. Just do what's best for you. Yes, you can research, ask questions, but I see a lot of posts online of people, hey, I'm this, what do you think? Hey, I'm getting paid this. This is my job response. Like, what do you guys think? Hey, I'm looking for a career change. These are my options. What do you guys think? Nobody else's opinion matters but yours, and you have to do what's best for you. And as if you are in the skilled trades, constantly making the best decision for you is, pretty much all you can do. But if you are trying to attract people also to get into the skilled trades, lying to them and telling them it's this great and dandy thing when it's not is also a honest thing that you have to do. And since there is a shortage, it's easy to say, all these crazy numbers and whatnot, but at the end of the day, you have to be brutally honest. And as a companies just have to create the culture, a great culture to keep people around. People will stay for the culture and less pay. But if you're just hiring mercenaries by overpaying them and expecting them to stay, the second a $2 more an hour offer comes in, that person's gone. But you're hiring mercenaries, not advocates for the company. So that's my thoughts. Hopefully that some of that made sense. I just think a lot of the skilled trades advocacy is lying to people and is not really telling the truth of what it actually is. And no matter how much shortage we have to we have to be honest with people. And when you're telling them, you know, hey, you may not be home exactly when you want every day, and hey, you may have to travel. There's a lot of suck in the skilled trades, and it's not for everybody. And there is a reason why there is a shortage of people in the skilled trades. The cost benefit analysis, especially in 2025, for somebody starting out in the skilled trades, is a very, very lopsided equation. Many companies are starting people at a very, very low wage, and that wage does not keep up with the cost of living, and the amount of work that they have to do for that wage is a lot higher than what some of their friends or other people that they see are doing for the same wage. Even though they may have a career, and in 10 years or even 5 years, they may be off in a better spot. That doesn't solve the problems of today. So just think about that. If you want to have conversation about that, or questions or anything, thoughts, I would love to hear it. You can email me, eric.johnson@boilearn.com, or DM me on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and we're not connected, connect with me. That'd be great. Thank you for listening. If you got this far and listening to my ramblings, my thoughts, just trying to be real and honest and have an honest conversation. And we will shortly have our first guest on this podcast, so stay tuned for that. But thank you for tuning in, and stay wild.